welcome to a series I totally didn't just make up off the top of my head. This is Geek Exchange, and this is a series in which I recommend movies, games, music, food. If we run out of ideas, let's do food, right? Salsa tacos, right? That's the next episode. This one though is not salsa tacos, it's Wolf Among Us. It might not always be obscure, but it's something that warrants a mention, and it's something that deserves to be highlighted in some way or another. I've got a few kind of videos planned for this series, a few kind of items that deserve to be mentioned, so there should be a few episodes of this, at least. This is the pilot episode, so depending on how this goes, depending on the feedback, the series might change, or it might not even exist. This might never be put up, so yeah, might be talking to myself, who knows. The first item we're going to talk about, I keep saying item, the first thing we're going to talk about is Wolf Among Us / Fables. And the reason we're doing two is because the game is based on the comic, and the comic is a byproduct of the game. They're kind of intertwined. And I feel like they're both similar, but they're also different in the sense that not everybody reads comics. So if you don't read comics, you might be more kind of leaning towards getting the game, and vice versa. It works both ways. The comic and the game are both very good and share a lot of similarities. So whichever one you choose to do, whichever one you choose to kind of take part in, will still be good no matter what. It's just kind of your preference, really. Your preference. No matter what you do, you're always going to enter the world of Fabletown and have a fun old time. So what is Fables? When I say Fables, I mean Wolf Among Us as well. Fables is a comic book series by Vertigo Comics, and it's one that's very interesting indeed. It's an overused premise as of late. So you had that movie with the princess who wakes up in New York. I don't know the name of it because it was shit, but it was a Disney movie about a princess and a prince who came from their fairyland to New York. That's an example of one that's similar in kind of premise to Wolf Among Us. Obviously in Wolf Among Us people die and get the hearts ripped out. Not too Disney, but you know what I mean, there's slight similarities. There's also a series on TV, which I'll annotate somewhere, in which there's fairy tale creatures in New York, or a city to be exact, and they had the Frozen characters there, and there was a lot of kind of outcry about that, because they're not really kind of fairy tale creatures, are they? But that's getting sidetracked. What I mean is that we're kind of oversaturated with these kind of things, but I feel like Fables was one of the first to foray into this kind of idea. But that doesn't take away how good it was and how good it still is. It's still running. There's still episodes, there's still issues being released. So if you join on now, you might be able to catch up. There's more than 100 issues out, but you might be able to catch up and then wait for the next episode, or you could wait till it's finished. It's up to you. But what I mean is, it's still relevant and it's still being made to this day. So the premise of the whole series is that all the Fables lived in their respective worlds. So you had the big bad wolf going after Red Riding Hood, you had Jack and the Beanstalk, you had the Toad from the Wind in the Willows. They were all in their separate stories, and they were all where you would expect them to be, you know? So the three little piggies were in their little houses, the straw one, the brick one, the stone one, whatever the story is. And it was fine, and it would just have been a normal kind of fairy tale story if that stayed that way. But it didn't, because somebody invaded their world and drove them from their kind of respective homes. And he was an absolute dick. That's not how they describe him in the fucking thing, but that's what he is. He's a dick. He's a horrible man. So the Fables all had to leave their little homes and flee. And they fled from one place, and they were chased, and they fled from another place, and they were chased, and they fled, and it was an ongoing thing for years. Until somebody found a portal that led to a kind of safe haven, or what was led to be a safe haven, and they took the chance and went through said portal. And that portal led to 80s New York. Hoo-hoo, because that's safe. Cocaine and AIDS is rampant, but hey-ho, let's go there for the fun. They went there and they settled in. But obviously, if you saw Brian the Giant walking around Manhattan, you would wonder what's going on, what's happening here. I mean, if he was there for 2 seconds, he would be in Humans of New York in no time, and it would just be chaos. It would be chaos. There's some weird people in New York, let me tell you, but there ain't no Brian the Giant. Pinocchio. Hear his story. I don't want to hear his story. His story's shit. He is made by some paedophile woodsman in a shack. He was lonely and wanted a friend, and the friend he built was a small child. A small child. His nose gets bigger. Pinocchio's nose gets bigger. Why do you think that was a feature? That was an intentional feature. Oh, he's telling lies. No, he just activated the fucking pleasure mode. Dirty cunt. I'm getting so distracted. Yeah, he would stand out like a sore thumb. You'd have dragons run about the place. It would be chaos. Gun crime would be down, but sword crime and fucking magic, moogly crime would be whoa, up. And yeah, it would be weird. It wouldn't work. So to combat being seen, what they would do is they would take a potion, and that potion was made by just the witches who came with them to New York, and it would mean that they were human. But it didn't have kind of an effect on everybody. If you were Brian the Giant, you would be too kind of weird for the potion to take effect on, and it wouldn't work. You'd need to have so many potions, just for like 10 minutes of you being human. Some monsters that were too strange were sent away from New York to a safe haven / prison, and everybody else took the potions and lived in New York and kind of went about their daily lives. Obviously they couldn't do what they used to do, so they had to kind of have this pseudo-society with them, and you'd have people with different jobs. So you'd have Ichabod Crane from the Headless Horseman tale. He was the mayor. You'd have Bigby Wolf as the sheriff, because everybody was scared of him. They wouldn't question his authority. You'd have Bluebeard or Blackbeard, or whatever the fuck his name was, in the kind of police as well. And all these characters would have their respective roles. And that's how it was done. So New York was simple for the people who could take potions. They took the potions and they just did normal kind of mundane jobs. The Fables, who were too hard to kind of mask, went to the farm. But the farm was very different to New York in a lot of ways. It was sort of like a prison, but then not. Like, if you went to prison for public urination, like imagine the prison you would go to. It would have seats, and it would have massage chairs, and it would have televisions, and it would have like fairy wallpaper, but it would still be a prison, right? Well, this is a similar situation. The farm they go to, the kind of farm, is very much like the kind of prison you go to for public urination. So if you know what that's like, and knowing my audience you probably do know what that's like, then that's what the farm is. So they didn't do anything wrong inherently, it's just that they were too hard to hide, and they were sent to kind of this remote location. And there's a lot of kind of bitterness and resentment because they were sent to the farm, and they're kind of ostracised from the other ones. So that's just kind of the premise of the whole series. Fairy tale creatures go into New York, and then they're separated into two groups, the New Yorkers and the people at the farm. But the protagonist is what really makes this an interesting kind of series to read, and a game series to play. Because Bigby is the protagonist in both the books and the game, and he's a very good protagonist. He's very similar to Constantine and Deckard from Blade Runner, in the sense that he's the sort of moody, kind of withdrawn archetype of a character. And if that's your kind of jig, if that's what you're into, then you'll love him. He's like your kind of 50s detective kind of guy, you know what I mean? And Fables, in a lot of ways, is like a kind of old detective novel. Obviously there's the fairy tale aspect, which sets it apart, but it has got the detective, but it has got murder mysteries and the kind of detective aspect at its core. So you have kind of the protagonist, the moody, kind of withdrawn protagonist, Bigby Wolf, the femme fatale, Snow White, and all the other archetypes that you would come to expect in this series, especially in the game series. It's kind of touched upon that people kind of are abused, people are used for like sexual reasons, like there's a stripper in the game. If that makes you want to buy the game, then so be it. There's a nude scene, you can see pixelated tits. If that's your kind of jig, then go jig to that. So yeah, it is an adult kind of series, it's an adult thing, but with a child premise. it's a strange kind of juxtaposition of two kind of things: the detective aspect for adults and the fantasy aspect, which is normally for children. Well, it's not really fantasy; it's more like fairy tale. If you're not sold on the premise, you're not sold on the series, God forbid, it's sort of like Constantine meets fairytaleland.com. I'm not sure I'll do another one of these videos. It was sort of a pilot type thing. If you liked it, then give us feedback. I can do more. There is a few more series of different things that I think should be highlighted. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, this was a pilot. It might not even be put on YouTube. So if it's not put on YouTube, hi Connor. This is you from the past. Hopefully you're well. Hopefully you're doing okay. Remember to eat, drink and sleep. 3 components of a healthy life. Thanks for not killing us. Thanks for not being dead right now.